Federal Record 77B declassified. The events on record begin on the morning of February 11, 2023, at the International Mail Facility operated by U.S. Customs and Border Protection at JFK International Airport, New York. A CBP import specialist named Officer Tillerman, 11 years on the cargo examination floor, pulled a mid-sized plastic drum off a pallet that had arrived on a commercial freight consignment from a chemical trading company registered in Shenzhen, China. The drum was labeled in both Mandarin and English. The English label read N-phenylethyl-4-piperidone, a legitimate laboratory reagent, Lot 23 4471, CAS number 397-42604, listed weight 4.9 kilograms, declared value $312 USD, importer of record listed as Apex Research Reagents LLC, registered address 1740 Breckenridge Commerce Park, Suite 114, Wilmington, Delaware. Everything on the paperwork fit the profile of a routine research chemical import, small quantity, low declared value, an obscure but real compound used in legitimate synthesis work. Officer Tillerman submitted it to the CBP laboratory anyway. Her reason, as stated in the examination log, was unremarkable. The drum's seal had been reapplied imperfectly, a detail she had learned to treat as a red flag. The lab result came back 48 hours later. The drum did not contain N-phenylethyl-4-piperidone. It contained a mixture of fluorofentanyl precursor compounds, specifically a combination of para-fluorofentanyl and 4-ANPP, both listed Schedule I controlled analog precursors under the Federal Analog Act. The concentration levels indicated a synthesis-grade batch prepared for pharmaceutical conversion, not academic use. The case file, indexed under Federal Record 77B and maintained by the Drug Enforcement Administration's New York Field Division in conjunction with Homeland Security investigations, documents what that single mislabeled drum unraveled over the following 14 months. The subject of Federal Record 77B is identified in the indictment as Dr. Elliot Marsh, age 44 at the time of arrest. The file describes him as a licensed pharmaceutical chemist holding an active DEA Schedule I researcher registration, a credential legitimately issued to him in 2018 for academic research at Whitmore University's Pharmacology Department in New Haven, Connecticut. He had published 12 peer-reviewed papers on opioid receptor binding profiles between 2015 and 2020. By every formal measure, he was a credentialed professional with legitimate access to controlled substance research tools. The file notes that this credentialing was precisely the mechanism he exploited. According to the affidavit filed by DEA Special Agent Meredith Voss on March 29, 2024, Marsh had begun his importation operation no later than the spring of 2021. Using his active DEA researcher registration as cover, he established a private laboratory in a commercial unit at the Harborview Commerce Center on Industrial Drive in Bridgeport, Connecticut, Unit 7. The lease was executed not under his own name, but under a business entity called Nexigen Analytical Services LLC, incorporated in Delaware in January 2021, with a registered agent address in Wilmington, the same registered agent service that also incorporated Apex Research Reagents LLC. The import scheme worked in layers. Marsh identified approximately 9 Chinese chemical vendors, primarily operating through Alibaba and direct business-to-business email channels, that would supply fluorofentanyl and acetylfentanyl precursor compounds labeled as non-controlled research reagents. The mislabeling was not crude. The compounds he ordered were selected specifically because they occupied chemical gray zones adjacent to but not always explicitly listed in then-current federal scheduling language. DEA scheduling updates in 2022 had closed several of those gaps, but the vendors adapted, substituting one analog for another as legal definitions tightened. The import shell companies rotated. The case file identifies at least 4 entities used across 14 months. Apex Research Reagents LLC, Bridgeport Scientific Supply LLC, Eastern Seaboard Analytical Incorporated, and Coastal Reagent Solutions registered in Wyoming. All 4 used variants of the same Delaware-Wilmington registered agent service. Shipping addresses cycled between commercial mailbox services in New Haven, Bridgeport, and Newark, New Jersey. Marsh spent approximately $2,400 in total on formation fees and registered agent costs across these 4 entities, a trivial investment against what the file estimates as a $3.1 million gross operation. DEA and HSI began building the case using a methodology the file describes as chemical backwards mapping. Agent Voss and HSI Special Agent Calvin Orr identified Apex Research Reagents LLC as the importer of record on the seized shipment and queried CBP's automated targeting system for prior import records. The system returned 11 prior entries over 18 months, all arriving from Shenzhen area suppliers, all declared as research reagents, all under the $1,000 low-value threshold that reduced examination probability. The file notes that all 11 prior shipments had passed through without laboratory examination. HSI financial records subpoenaed from 2 commercial banks and a cryptocurrency exchange in March 2023 traced the payment flows. Marsh had wired payments to the Chinese vendors from a business checking account held in the name of Nexagen Analytical Services. The same account received incoming wire transfers and cryptocurrency conversions from 3 digital wallets that HSI traced through blockchain analysis to a darknet distribution operation the indictment calls the Meridian Supply Group, a network operating on the darknet marketplace Elysium, serving approximately 4,000 active buyers across the northeastern United States. The chemistry Marsh ran at the Harborview Commerce Center was, according to the DEA forensic chemistry report submitted as Exhibit 17, sophisticated. The imported precursors were converted into acetyl fentanyl, para-fluorofentanyl, and a proprietary butafentanyl derivative the DEA lab had not previously encountered in this formulation. The butafentanyl variant was the compound the government's expert witnesses emphasized most heavily at sentencing. Its potency profile, relative to morphine, was estimated at approximately 700 to 1, placing it within the range of synthetic opioids responsible for the most acute overdose mortality in the northeastern states during 2022 and 2023. The conversion lab was functional but compact. Search warrant photographs entered as Exhibit 31 document a single-car garage-sized unit equipped with a rotary evaporator, a glass column chromatography rig, a vacuum oven, a precision milligram scale, and approximately 60 liters of chemical solvents including diethyl ether, methanol, and acetone. The equipment had been purchased across 12 different scientific supply vendors over 8 months, using credit card accounts held in the names of Marsh's shell entities, specifically to avoid the single vendor purchase flags that DEA routinely monitors for clandestine lab supply chains. The distribution channel was structured to minimize Marsh's direct exposure. The case file identifies 3 primary distributors referred to in the indictment as Distributor A, Distributor B, and Distributor C. Distributor A, later identified in public court records as Marcus Tolland, age 31, of Bridgeport, served as the primary bulk pickup contact. Tolland communicated with Marsh exclusively through an encrypted messaging application operating under rotating account handles. He received compressed powder quantities, typically in 5 to 20 gram units sealed in vacuum pack pouches, at dead drop locations in commercial parking lots in Bridgeport and New Haven, then transferred the material to the Meridian Supply Group's darknet listing infrastructure. Distributor B operated in the Newark, New Jersey area and received shipments through a courier intermediary. Distributor C, based in Providence, Rhode Island, was the smallest operation by volume and the first to be identified during the investigation's surveillance phase. Agent Voss's affidavit describes the surveillance escalation in detail. Beginning in April 2023, DEA New York assigned a dedicated electronic surveillance team to Marsh's known vehicles and telephone accounts, a federal pen register and trap and trace order authorized under case number 23 MC0791SJB in the Eastern District of New York, documented outgoing communications from Marsh's primary cell phone to numbers belonging to Meridian Supply Group principals. A wiretap order, Exhibit 5 in the case file, was approved by U.S. District Judge Carla Fenwick on May 8, 2023, authorizing real-time intercept on 2 of those numbers. The wiretap recordings, transcribed in the case file as Exhibits 12A through 12F, captured critical communications. Marsh and his distribution contacts used transparent code language. Reagents referred to finished product, lots referred to distribution batches, analytical work referred to conversion lab operations. One intercepted call, recorded on July 6, 2023, captured Marsh advising a contact identified as Meridian's primary account manager that the latest lot contained, in his words, the strong formulation a phrase the DEA lab later interpreted as a reference to the butafentanyl derivative. Physical surveillance of the Harborview unit began in June 2023. Agents Voss and Orr, working with a 4-person DEA team, documented Marsh's access to Unit 7 on 31 occasions between June and October 2023, typically arriving between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. on weekday mornings. The surveillance log notes that on 6 occasions Marsh was observed exiting the unit carrying soft-sided cooler bags, which he placed in the cargo area of his personal vehicle, a grey 2021 Subaru Outback. On 3 of those 6 occasions, Distributor A's vehicle was observed in the same parking lot within a 2-hour window. On August 14, 2023, CBP at JFK, now operating under a directed targeting alert tied to Federal Record 77B, intercepted a second shipment consigned to Coastal Reagent Solutions at a Newark mailbox address. The package, a padded envelope weighing 340 grams, was labeled as containing sodium bicarbonate for laboratory use. The CBP laboratory returned a positive identification for 4-ANPP at approximately 95% purity. This second seizure confirmed that Marsh's operation had continued despite the February interception, and that he had shifted to smaller consignments to reduce examination probability. The financial picture assembled by HSI and IRS criminal investigation reflects an operation of considerable scale for a solo operator. The financial summary, prepared by IRS CI Special Agent Diane Kowalski and submitted as Exhibit 44, traces $3.1 million in proceeds across the 14-month indictment period. Of that total, approximately $1.8 million was received in cryptocurrency, Bitcoin and Monero, from the Meridian Supply Group accounts. The remaining $1.3 million arrived via wire transfers and cash deposits, structured in amounts below $10,000 to avoid currency transaction report thresholds. The cryptocurrency was converted to cash through peer-to-peer exchange platforms and a cryptocurrency ATM network in southern Connecticut and northern New Jersey, then deposited through 4 business checking accounts held by Marsh's shell entities. Approximately $440,000 of the proceeds was invested in 2 rental properties in New Haven County through a real estate holding company, Marsh River Properties LLC, incorporated in Connecticut in September 2022. DEA Forensic Accountant Special Agent Thomas Herrera estimated that Marsh's operation produced and distributed a minimum of 2.8 kilograms of finished fentanyl analog material. The DEA harm analysis, Exhibit 49, calculated that 2.8 kilograms at average street dilution represented a potential distribution volume sufficient to produce approximately 560,000 individual use doses. The file cross-references 3 overdose death investigations in New Haven County during 2022 and 2023, in which toxicology reports identified para-fluorofentanyl or a structurally similar analog as a contributing cause. The case file stops short of a direct evidentiary link between those deaths and Marsh's specific batches. Chain of custody evidence was insufficient, but the 3 deaths are noted in the government's sentencing memorandum as factual context for the harm argument. The takedown was executed on the morning of March 7, 2024. DEA New York, HSI, and the U.S. Marshals Service coordinated the operation, with secondary roles assigned to CBP and Connecticut State Police. The arrest team consisted of 22 federal agents and 4 state troopers. At 6:14 a.m., a DEA entry team breached the door of Elliot Marsh's residence at 88 Fernwood Place in New Haven. Marsh was placed under arrest without physical resistance. He was found in his kitchen, dressed and, according to the entry team leader's notes, apparently preparing to leave for the day. Simultaneous warrants were executed at Unit 7 of the Harborview Commerce Center, at 2 New Haven mailbox service addresses associated with Marsh's import entities, and at the Bridgeport residence of Marcus Tolland. A 5th warrant was served at a self-storage unit in Orange, Connecticut, identified as a secondary supply location based on GPS data from a court-authorized tracking device installed on Marsh's vehicle in October 2023. The DEA evidence log for the Unit 7 search, Exhibit 55, documents the seizure of 38.4 grams of finished fentanyl analog in vacuum-sealed pouches, 14 kilograms of precursor compounds in various stages of preparation, all laboratory equipment, 180 vacuum pack pouches suitable for distribution packaging, and chemical safety notebooks maintained by Marsh in his own handwriting containing synthesis procedure records, reaction yields, purification notes, and lot-by-lot production logs covering 11 months of operations. The synthesis notebooks were characterized by the government's expert witness, Dr. Patricia Ng of Rutgers University's Chemistry Department, as particularly significant. At the evidentiary hearing on September 4, 2024, Dr. Ng testified that the notebooks reflected not merely general knowledge of fentanyl analog synthesis, but a systematic program of chemical optimization, that Marsh had iteratively modified the butafentanyl derivative across at least 4 generations of synthesis, adjusting reaction temperatures, solvent ratios, and purification steps to improve yield and purity. She characterized this as demonstrating professional-grade pharmaceutical chemistry skill applied deliberately to the production of a compound with no legitimate medical use. The storage unit in orange yielded 47 kilograms of raw precursor chemicals, a second precision milligram scale, and approximately $38,000 in cash in 2 fireproof document boxes. Toland was found in possession of 12.4 grams of fentanyl analog material consistent with Marsh's production batches and 2 cell phones whose encrypted archives, accessed pursuant to warrant, provided corroborating evidence of the distribution arrangement. Toland agreed to a cooperation agreement in May 2024. Distributor B, identified in public records as Leon Ferreira, age 26, of Newark, was arrested on March 12, 2024, on a warrant issued by the District of New Jersey. Distributor C, identified as Anthony Purcell, age 33, of Providence, had been arrested in January 2024 under a sealed complaint coordinated with Federal Record 77B to avoid compromising the ongoing surveillance of Marsh. The indictment returned by the District of Connecticut Grand Jury on March 5, 2024, charged Marsh with 7 counts: conspiracy to import Schedule I controlled substance analogs, importation of controlled substance analogs on 3 separate occasions, conspiracy to manufacture and distribute controlled substance analogs, manufacturing controlled substance analogs, and money laundering conspiracy. Toland was named as a co-conspirator on the distribution counts. Marsh entered a guilty plea on November 18, 2024, before U.S. District Judge Harriet Blanchard on 5 of the 7 counts in exchange for the government's agreement to drop the 2 standalone importation charges. At sentencing on February 6, 2025, Judge Blanchard imposed 22 years in federal prison and 3 years of supervised release. The court ordered forfeiture of all laboratory equipment, the 4 business entities, the 2 New Haven County rental properties held through Marsh River Properties LLC, and $618,000 in traceable proceeds. Toland received 7 years pursuant to his cooperation agreement. Ferreira received 8 years and 4 months following a guilty plea in the District of New Jersey in December 2024. Purcell, in the District of Rhode Island, received 4 years and 6 months. The case file's closing summary notes several points the DEA characterizes as instructive for future import enforcement operations. The first concerns the researcher registration system. At the time of Marsh's operation, individual researchers holding active Schedule I registrations were not subject to systematic cross-referencing of their import entity registrations against their DEA credentials. DEA's Diversion Control Division issued revised guidance in October 2024, implementing a protocol that flags active registrant names against CBP import of record filings, a direct operational response to the vulnerabilities Marsh exploited. The second point concerns the mislabeled reagent import pathway. CBP's targeting algorithms were calibrated primarily around explicitly listed controlled substances, precursor compounds in chemical gray zones, controlled as analogs under the Federal Analog Act but not explicitly named in the schedules, carried a significantly lower interception probability. The CBP alert that initiated Federal Record 77B was generated not by an algorithmic flag, but by Officer Tillerman's physical observation of an imperfectly resealed container. The file recommends expanded laboratory examination of small quantity reagent imports from designated high-risk origin countries. The third point concerns credentialing as cover. Marsh's DEA researcher registration was not fraudulently obtained. He held a genuine credential from a genuine institutional affiliation. The file describes this as a credential laundering mechanism. The registration created a plausible explanatory framework that suppressed suspicion from commercial suppliers, mailbox operators, and industrial unit leasing agents who might otherwise have questioned an individual operating a chemical laboratory in a light industrial complex. The synthesis notebooks seized from Unit 7 were transferred to the DEA's Diversion Control Division following sentencing for use in chemist training and analog scheduling assessment programs. The butafentanyl derivative documented in Marsh's notes had not been previously encountered in synthesized form by DEA analysts. The notebooks accelerated the compound's scheduling review by providing a complete synthesis pathway used to generate reference standard material. Federal Record 77B is held at the DEA New York Field Division Records Facility under restricted access classification, with select exhibits transferred to the Diversion Control Division's reference archive. The case is closed as of February 6, 2025. The drum of mislabeled precursor compounds that Officer Tillerman pulled from a freight pallet at JFK on the morning of February 11, 2023, is retained as Exhibit 1 in the evidence archive. It remains the first physical artifact in a case file that expanded across 47 separate exhibits, 3 federal districts, 4 corporate entities, and 14 months of investigation. The record is closed. The file is declassified.